Happy Friday, everyone. How are you all doing tonight? Welcome to the Friday night crime knitting. This is a stitch and crime. And tonight we are covering some more of the Murdaugh murders. I'm glad you guys are joining me. Hello, Rosie. Good to see you. Hi, Mary. Hello, Robin. Yes, well, hello there to you. There's Annie. Hello. What are you doing? What are you working on? Are you crocheting or knitting or just listening? I'd love to know how many of you are just listening while doing something else or just listening. You know, always wondered if there's anyone here that's not a knitter or crocheter. Hello, Colleen. Glad you are here. Hi, Kathy. Come on in. Going to give everybody a few minutes. Tonight's cup is Coffee, Yarn, Speak in that order. This is the cup you get from Hobby Lobby. It's like it's in that like Yarnology line. And tonight I have a cup of tea and I'm drinking. It's a puka, elderberry, and echinacea with elderflower. I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's very different. I thought just looking at the color that it was going to be more like fruit, kind of like on the fruit side, but it's very different. Hi, Karen. Glad you're here. Mary's crocheting chemo caps. That's awesome. Knitting a hat and listening and knitting, crocheting a scarf, cranking out slippers with blanket yarn, quick and satisfying. Ah, hey, Sally, good to see you. Glad you're here. It is very herbally. Yeah, it is very herbally. It's that's a really good word for it. It's not bad. It's just not what I expected. How is Dad doing? So Dad's doing well. Um, he's getting out and driving and going places I don't really want him to go, but you know what can you do about that? Anyway, he's doing fine. It sounds yummy to you. How you doing, Lori? Glad you're here. It tastes a little herbally too. It does. Yeah. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's just not. I think I was going for something more fruity tonight and didn't get it. Hey, look who's here. It's Katie from Naughty Knitting Sacks. Wait till you see what I'm going to be doing in February, Katie, because your bags may be involved with the project. Oh my gosh, Alice. Yay. Alice is taking a break from her diamond painting. Oh, let me show you guys. I did another section of my diamond painting. So this is how far I am on it now. So this was the first one, and then I did this one. And giving credit where credit is due, even though she doesn't come in here anymore, in case she is watching, I will say thank you because Tank Sullivan's the one that bought this for me. And I don't know the name of it, but she gave it to me a while back, and I'm so glad to get started on it. It is so addicting. Yeah, it should be fun. It should be fun. Back to work this week after holiday break? Yes. Okay. I saw that you wanted to use that mandala yarn, Rosie, and I think that it would look great as a baby blanket. Absolutely great. It is pretty. You have a lot of sunflowers in your stash. It's very bright and cheery. I do like that about it. I like the Tazo Passion Tea. I think that one is a little bit flowery, but it also has a little bit of a fruity kind of flavor, and I like that a lot. I'm looking into maybe some teas that if you guys have any recommendations for teas that would be good when they were cold, because I've been experimenting a little bit with that too, is that we're going to start warming up. It's going to be spring and then we'll start warming up. So I'm going to want to do that. Okay, you guys. I've got two things I'm working on. One of them is this. I'm still working on this washcloth. If I don't get it finished, then, if I get it finished and I need something else to work on while we're talking, I started another scrap blanket. So it is on the hooks all ready to go on the needles. It's 250 stitches, and so it's already started so that I can go ahead and work on it too. So this will be another scrap blanket. And it's not going to be, I should take that back because it's not going to be a full blanket. I'm going to do like I did before. I will go just so wide to make it into a scarf or a wrap and then cast it off. I want to make another one of those, but I'm thinking I might do it a little bit wider. Hello, Tamra. Glad you are here. Thank you for coming in. You watched my enveloping? Enveloping, that's my new word. Yeah, that's some pretty cool stuff. So we're talking about some things that I opened on my other channel. That is Shiny She Shed. You can find a link to it. It is a featured channel on my page. Oh yeah, the apple cinnamon's good. Liquid diet right now. Oh goodness. So lots of tea. Yeah, lots of tea. So tonight we're talking about the boat crash. And Serbs has to get his bone out. So in case y'all are wondering what all that thumping is, that is Cerberus chewing on his bone. It is what it is. Yep. I created a new word, enveloping. That's where I open the envelopes that I get instead of on unboxings. So that's my new word, enveloping. And I am decreasing now, you guys, on this. So that's why I say I may get it finished before we're done. Okay, if you are unfamiliar with how I do my Friday night crime, I usually refer to my notes and I start telling the story, and then I will come back to the chat and I will check for comments and questions at that time. So you guys may have to answer each other for a little while until I come back to you, just so you guys know. Hi, Chels. So do you guys remember me talking a little bit about this boat crash? This involved Paul Murdaugh, and Paul Murdaugh and his mother were murdered on June 7th of 2021. And Alec Murdaugh, the father, is going to be on trial for that. And a lot of people are trying to tie the fact that, let me lift this up just a little bit, get it a little closer to me. A lot of people are trying to say that this boat crash might be the reason why Paul was killed and that it wasn't Alec. So that's something that has been talked about in a lot of places. Oh, congratulations, Lori. Congrats to him. That's awesome. That is awesome. Now, the people that were there, let me give you a recap of the people that were there that night. Those of you that are not familiar, that the boat crash itself happened on February 24th of 2019. And those that were on the boat were Anthony Cook and his girlfriend, Mallory Beach. And Mallory is the one who was killed. Connor Cook and his girlfriend, Miley Altman. Paul Murdaugh and his girlfriend, Morgan Daughtry. And they were all childhood friends. They grew up together. They spent lots of time together, swimming, boating, out at the river, jumping off the bridge, all because there's water everywhere and everybody's got a boat. So this is all normal activity as far as what they were doing. Now, Paul has been described by a lot of people as being an arrogant, rich kid. Someone who always got his way. If you didn't do what he wanted, he had friends that would back him up. A lot of people said he had a temper and that he had an attitude of being entitled because of, who his family was, and that people tended to be afraid of his dad. So not like his dad would hurt them, but more like they would get in trouble. They could get in trouble because of his dad. And we're talking about Alec Murdaugh. So parents of the friends of Paul said that Maggie raised her children with the knowledge that they were above everyone, that they could not be touched. They told their children, you can be friends with the Murdaughs. However, you need to know that if something happens, it's not the Murdaughs that are going to get in trouble. It's you that will get in trouble. And everybody just knew that about this family. Everyone in town knew that. Now, two hours before the boat trip, Paul Murdaugh and his girlfriend, and his friend, Connor Cook. Now, I at first thought that Connor and Anthony must be brothers, but I have since found out they weren't brothers. Now, I don't know if they're cousins, but they're not brothers. They're two separate families, and they both have the name of Cook. And Connor looked a little bit like Paul, you guys. He had the same kind of, has the same kind of build, same kind of color, like blondish hair, blondish red hair, and kind of shorter than the other people, same kind of build and everything. And evidently he and Connor had the same kind of an attitude that they were kind of like they were the life of the party kind of guys, you know what I mean? They were always the ones that were the loud and boisterous ones. Hello, Sandy. Hello, Starla. It's 2 hours before this trip, Paul and his friend Connor Cook pulled up to a gas station to fill up the truck and the boat with gas. Paul uses his brother Buster, the younger Buster, not old Buster. This is the younger Buster. He used his brother's ID to obtain cases of beer. And we know this because Paul is seen on camera raising this beer in the air as he is walking out to his truck where Connor is waiting in the truck. And I've seen the video coverage so far of it. There may be more at trial. Well, this won't go to trial, but there may be, you never know what evidence will get pulled into the Murdaugh case. And you can see where Paul is buying the beer. He hands her the ID. The girl looks at it. He's all leaning in. Okay, everything's fine. Gives him the money and does it, and walks right out with the beer, and he's carrying it out to the car. Now, Paul and Buster also looked quite a bit alike. So the ID didn't get questioned. And we'll get into that more later. But Paul had red, full, curly hair. He had a semi-round, freckled face, much like his father, Alec Murdaugh, in his younger days. If you see any pictures of him, and you will as this goes along. But it seems we are learning that Buster may have been a bit different than the rest of his family. Now, we'll see as the trial goes along if this is the case. But so far, it's like, and everybody said this, that Buster was more liked by his mother and father than Paul, but he was the golden child as far as that goes, that he, you know, he didn't do anything wrong according to them. Now, neither of them did, but of the two, he was the more favored. Now, according to his friends and classmates and the community itself, people in the community, they felt that Paul had a dark side, a side that would be very often show up when he was drinking. There were interviews with those who were on the boat that night, and we'll get to that here in just a little while. Come back to that. Now there are some depositions out there, and I did pull some of my information from those depositions online, that somehow Anthony also obtained wine coolers and some other things, so they had quite a bit of alcohol that they were drinking on this boat. All right, now this information came from the lawsuit against the Parker's Convenience Store. Now, the Parker's Convenience Store is where Paul got his beer and where the video footage was. And I'll get to that here in a minute. But the group left from some place called Chechesee. I can't say that one right, but Chechesee, where the Murdaughs had their boat and had a home. So they have more, the Murdaughs have more than one property, okay? And this particular one is on the river. And that's where the boat was, and that's where they had a home. And the boat, which belongs to Alec Murdaugh, is a 17-foot sea hunt boat with no working lights, y'all. No working lights. They were taking this boat out at night, but there's no working lights. The passengers had to take turns holding flashlights in order for anyone to see where they were going and to see each other. So there's a lot of pictures of them online. You can find that in documentaries and other things about them where there's lots of pictures and their faces are all lit up. Like, and I thought it was just, well, it was just they're doing this on the boat, and it was because they were using their phones and it was lighting up their face. But the other reason was because they were using flashlights. So it has been said that the group may have taken the boat to the party after dark so they would not be caught in a supposed roadblock or traffic stop that night. So they were going to a party, and it would have been something that law enforcement would know about, right? So they're saying that they decided to get around this traffic stop where they were going to, get checked. Law enforcement would check things a little bit better than what the clerk at the convenience store evidently did. And most of them knew them, that they decided, well, they'll just take the boat. Now, Anthony Cook said they took the boat because they all thought it would be fun to take the boat out at night in the dark and go straight to this party because this party was on the river. So we don't really know what the real story is. But this party was being called an oyster roast. Now this came out in depositions that they were calling it an oyster roast. Christy and James Wood were the hosts of this party on a place called Palkey Island. And the group took the boat there. The group I'm talking about that got in the accident took the boat there, Paul and his group, and they spent approximately 5 hours at this party and, of course, continuing to drink. Now, after they left the roast, they got back in the boat to go back to the Murdaugh property, and they're riding down the river in Beaufort County, or Beaufort County, and I'm not sure how you say it. It looks like Beaufort. Tensions began to rise because they've all been drinking. And supposedly when Paul drinks, he gets to be belligerent. And he starts making comments and doing things that nobody is very happy with. There starts to be some fighting. People starting to kind of holler and say, do this, do that, calm down. This, Paul was driving erratically and he was yelling at his girlfriend and all these things. And everyone knew Paul should not be driving because they knew that he was really stinking drunk. Now, Connor did drive the boat at one point because Paul left the wheel of the boat to go yell at his girlfriend and go back, and Connor would grab the wheel and drive while Paul was parading around. But he always took the wheel back, and he definitely would not let anybody have the wheel after they stopped. So they stopped along the river and went to a place that they decided to go and have a drink, that Paul and Connor went to this place they decided they would go. Connor said he'd go with him and go get a couple of shots. So they go to Luther's Bar in downtown Beaufort. Because that's helpful to add more liquor on top of that. Shots of lemon drop and Jaeger. And Paul gets really intoxicated and he gets into an altercation with another patron at the bar. And there's stuff thrown around. And they leave voluntarily. Nobody throws them out. But it gets kind of nasty before they do. Now, by the time that Paul and Connor are leaving this bar, Paul's alter ego, Timmy, has come out. Oh, yeah. No lights would definitely be illegal. I'm checking the chat to see if I'm missing anything, you guys. We'll get back to that alter ego guy in just a minute. Yeah, this is the grandma's washcloth. But I'm not doing the holes on the side. I'm doing it without the holes, Lori. And I do have a tutorial for this on my channel, showing you how I do it. Hello, Donna. Who else did I miss? I think Sandy came in. Starla. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here. So Paul's alter ego is somebody that he personally calls Timmy, because he knows this happens. And so he gives him a name and he calls him Timmy. What does Timmy look like? Pictures and descriptions of Timmy by people who have spent time around Paul show a very tense, very angry Paul with splayed hands. So he would splay out his hands like overextended like that, with like the fingers like laid out like, and supposedly he couldn't get them back in, and he would like walk around with them like that. He had jerky movements when this alter ego shows up. And nothing anyone would say or do could calm him down. He gets into that mode and he just does what he does, and there's nothing anybody can do. He's sporadic and just gets increasingly more angry depending on what's going on. So now he's arguing with everyone. No one wants him to drive. There's arguments at the boat before they get back in the boat. It's 1 a.m. in the morning. And at first, he gets in the boat and starts to drive slow. So he's doing the whole really slow thing. And then he starts going in circles. He's driving the boat in circles, and they can't get him to stop doing that. And right before the accident, Paul has left the wheel 3 times now in his underwear. So he has pulled all his clothes off and he's in his boxers and he's walking back and forth. He goes up to the front of the boat where his girlfriend is. He's yelling at her while Connor grabs the wheel again. The 3rd time, he pushes Morgan, his girlfriend, spits on her and slaps her. Mallory, who is Anthony's girlfriend, is the one who gets killed. She screams at Paul to stop. She and Anthony are sitting together. Paul starts to say something to Anthony, and Anthony says to him, "Don't you make that mistake." Don't even. And that's when Paul goes back to the wheel and he speeds and takes off. And it's just a few seconds later, and with him at the wheel, they accelerate very rapidly. Anthony and Mallory are sitting at the bottom of the boat because it just they sink down to the bottom of the boat to try to stay safe because it is crazy. And seconds after he takes off, they hit the Archer Creek Bridge. Anthony and Mallory both are thrown from the boat, and Mallory does not resurface. Hi, Laura. Yeah, that does that on top of beer and everything else. Mm-hmm. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this lawsuit. There's more than one lawsuit. One of them was by Mrs. Beach, Mallory's mother, against Parker's 55 gas station. That's the convenience store where Paul bought the beer. She also has one against Buster and Alec Murdaugh. I don't know what has happened as far as these particular. I need to dig some more to see if anything really happened with these, because now that Paul is dead and he cannot, these were going on at the time that he had been indicted for this. And so he was still supposed to be going to trial for it when he was killed. But the lawsuit claims that the gas station is liable for negligence of the employee based on poor training by the company and the employee. You guys, I know that they do a lot of training for these. At least I know around here, Mr. Fiber's uncle runs one of the local gas stations, and I've heard him talk about the training that they do on their people to make sure that they are carding everyone. And now, everything, there's a sign everywhere about you will be carded, you will be carded, you will be carded. So, I mean, even I get carded. I have to show my ID if I buy a bottle of wine at Walmart, and they know I'm not a youngin'. A youngin'. Okay, Laura, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And then there's liability of Buster and Alex in contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And I don't quite understand, I guess because Alec Murdaugh is his father. So he should have been responsible for making sure that Paul did not get the alcohol. And one of the females, and I don't know which one it was, who was on the boat that night, had also used a fake ID to buy alcohol from Parker's. And a lot of information came out in the lawsuit, the depositions that are public. You guys can find them. There's a lot of information that came out because of that. They had to tell some of their story for the lawsuit. Now, Anthony calls after the boat. What happened with the boat? Anthony calls 911 and he tells them they are at Archer's Creek. He doesn't really know where they are, and he says there are 6 of us and 1 is missing. He tells law enforcement on that night they're walking around. Paul now is walking around in his underwear. He's walking around. They have Anthony aside because they're trying to, talk to him about what happened. And Paul's walking around and Anthony looks over and he says, "You see that guy right there? His dad is Alec Murdaugh. Good luck." Hey, Darcia. Yes, it is very twisted. Oh yeah. So Paul, who's now sobered up just a bit, he's not totally sober, but just a bit, kind of got himself, you know, it's that little touch of adrenaline that you get when, oh, you've done effed up. He says, he's walking around asking everybody if he can borrow their phone. So he's asking law enforcement if he can borrow somebody's phone because he needs to call his grandfather. His grandfather is Old Buster. And at this point, he was still alive. And he needs to call his grandfather. Anthony's calling his parents. And he says, I Mallory's missing. It's been 30 minutes. I don't know what to do. What do I do? Paul obviously knows he's in trouble. Okay, so he needs help. And he knows his grandfather will get him out of it. And when he's talking to them, he's not Timmy. He's a nearly naked, calm Paul walking around thinking above and beyond law enforcement at this point. Now, Mallory's body is found 7 days later, 5 miles from the accident site. The coroner determines that she died from blunt force trauma and drowning. Because Anthony describes the fact that he had a hold of her, and when they hit the bridge, he couldn't hold on to her. She popped right out of his arms. I think if there had been a trial, they would have probably come to the conclusion that she popped up and got hit, at least in part, by the bridge overhead and then went into the water. And that Anthony popped up and went straight over. I don't know, but that sounds, with blunt force trauma, it sounds like that has to be what happened. That's just the way I see it. I don't know. I'm not telling you there's evidence for that. I'm just saying that's the way I see it. I believe the crash threw her into the bridge and that she and Anthony popped up when they hit. Anthony was thrown free. Mallory was struck, putting her out cold. Okay. So she sank. She was not breathing, so she sank. No air in her lungs. And it wasn't until the body began to decompose and she floated, then she traveled the 5 miles where she was found. And that reminded me of Casey Peterson, about what happened with her, if you remember. Now, at the time of his death, as I said, Paul was facing 1 count of boating under the influence. Now, did you guys know this? I did not know there was something called BUI. So DUI is driving under the influence. And I thought that if you were driving a boat, it also was driving under the influence. But it's not. It's called BUI, boating under influence. So that was new to me. I just found that interesting. So BUI, resulting in bodily injury. If convicted, he would have been facing up to 25 years for the death, with a minimum of 1 year in prison. 15 years for the bodily injury, with a minimum of 30 days in prison. That does not sound like much. but it is different on the boat than it is on land. And it's also different because he didn't actually shoot her or strike her or whatever. So it's different. Paul was charged for all of this on April 18th of 2019, the very day that would have been Mallory Beach's 20th birthday. Alec and his father would not allow them to put handcuffs on Paul. His mugshot was taken in the hallway of the courthouse. And the community was talking about how, it's the Murdaughs. They'll get away with it. Nothing's going to happen to them. There was a big outcry because Paul was allowed to go. He was allowed to leave the courthouse. He was allowed to go to school. Out on bond, traveling from state to state. No, he was allowed to travel in the state to go to college, though. He was allowed to travel out of town and go to college. So y'all have heard of that. I had not heard of a BUI. That was different to me. So now we go forward to they all get transported to the hospital, right? This young group of adults that's left, everyone but Mallory. Now the helicopters and everybody are out looking for Mallory. They get transported to the emergency room in Beaufort or Beaufort, whichever one you want to call it. Connor calls home and asks his parents to come to the hospital. Connor's jaw is broken, but he's up and walking. He walks into the hospital. He had to have surgery to repair the jaw. Morgan was Paul's girlfriend, Morgan Daughtry. She was severely injured and she had lost a lot of blood. She was in shock, was brought in on a stretcher, and she had to have over 20 stitches to sew parts of her fingers back on. So probably her hands went up, is my guess. Paul was brought in on a stretcher, and they had to tie him down because he was so belligerent. He was fighting the EMTs. And they actually put him on his own ambulance because of it. He was so belligerent, they brought him in on a separate ambulance from everybody else. His grandfather Murdaugh was quoted as saying that Paul was drunker than Cooter Brown. He was so drunk and belligerent that he was being obscene with the nurses. Alec Murdaugh and Randolph Buster, the grandfather, arrived at the ER. They began standing guard at Paul's door, and they would not allow anybody to come in and interview them. So no law enforcement coming in. Good night, Tamra. Appreciate it. Glad you came by. Alec calls Connor's parents on their way to the hospital, like between 3 and 5 times, and is trying to convince them that Connor was not driving, that Paul had not been driving, that Connor had been driving. And Alec Murdaugh goes into Connor's room to try to convince Connor that he had been driving. Alec Murdaugh is walking from room to room, telling everyone not to talk to law enforcement. Not like, hey, Are you guys all right? Everyone's okay? Glad you guys are all right? Nothing. Don't talk to law enforcement. There's no concern from Paul, Alec, or Randolph about the missing Mallory. Nobody talks about her. Nothing. In fact, Randolph is heard saying, that girl's gone. No need to worry about her. Now, Paul had told his grandfather when he called him out on the bridge that Cotton Top was driving, and that was Connor's nickname. Now, Alec arranges for a lawyer for Connor while he's in the while they're at the emergency room. He arranges for a lawyer. And the lawyer's name is Corey Fleming. Now, Corey Fleming is a really good lawyer and also Buster's godfather. So Paul's older brother's godfather winds up being Connor's lawyer. However, once Connor's family finds out that he's not only Buster's godfather, but he is Alec Murdaugh's college roommate, they get rid of him and they hire Joe McCulloch. I have a little bit more, you guys. It's all, this is why I wanted to wait and lay down some of the other stuff first, because a lot is very, very evident when you hear how this all went down with this boat accident. When you really see them rally the wagons, right? We're going to rally the wagons. Y'all know what that means, just like the old days where when the Indians were coming, they pulled all the wagons around into a circle, so they could protect themselves. That's exactly what this family was doing. On the bridge at the river, law enforcement, divers, helicopters are all out looking for Mallory. Mallory's parents are there, and they try to go down to the water, and they're held back. But the next day, when Alec Murdaugh and his wife Maggie go down there, they're allowed to go right under the crime tape, go right on down to the water. Law enforcement do not treat, at this point, they're not treating this as a crime scene. The boat was not recognized as a crime scene until hours later. Law enforcement asked a member of the Murdaugh family to move the boat, to bring a trailer and move the boat. I mean, we're talking about all the officials out there with their boats and their equipment, and they'd have a trailer that they could officially move this boat somewhere, that they have a Murdaugh person come and do it. Items from the scene are now missing, like Paul's clothes, his cell phone, other things that were on the boat, things that would certainly be considered as evidence, like DNA that was collected, missing. 3 days after the crash, Maggie shows up at the river with, all the stuff that's going on out there. And she takes it upon herself to get in the back seat of Anthony's parents' vehicle. Now, Anthony's mom is sitting there looking out at the water, and she's just hoping they're still going to find Mallory. And Maggie gets in the back of her vehicle and she says, "Hey, what do you think if they never find her?" Now, what does that tell you about her? Paul goes up to Anthony after the funeral for Mallory, and he tells him he's sorry. And here's something I have a question about, because in everywhere that I saw interviews with Anthony, he's always defending Paul. He talks about what a great guy Paul was, that people just really didn't know him. And it's really interesting to me. I've been trying to decide what is going on with Anthony, because his parents were talking about how horrible it was for him that, you know, your girlfriend's been in an accident is one thing, but you have her and she gets torn out of your arms. They're talking about how awful that has to be. And, he's still defending Paul. And I'm wondering if he feels a lot of guilt over the fact that his girlfriend is dead, that he did not protect her, that he feels responsible for their being there in the first place. Hey, Shad. How are you tonight? Are you working on anything? Are you knitting? They do have. So Alec Murdaugh was the solicitor for the county, would be like a district attorney at this time when this happens. Alec Murdaugh does not lose he didn't lose his license until he was arrested. He was not disbarred until he was arrested for the murder of his wife and Paul. And just so y'all know, I can read to you something that I saw today. I was looking for any kind of updates, and we now know that Alec Murdaugh is going to go to court. Let's see, what was the date? January 23rd is his court date. Knitting a shawl from Trisha on website. Oh, you're knitting it for her. Oh, that's cool. So here is what they're saying. And this is from the Greenville News, you guys. So you can look this up if you want to. But new documents reveal more about the Alec Murdaugh murder and Russell Lafitte fraud cases. So Russell Lafitte is the man who was the banker. Okay, let's just put it that way. He's the banker guy, lawyer guy that helped Alec Murdaugh with his funneling of money. Now, I just want to remind you that during the initial hearings, part of what we are hearing is the going to be motive in this case was the fact that Alec Murdaugh had a lot to lose, and that he also claims to have spent a lot of money on drugs, and that supposedly the money issue and all of the fraud and all of that finally got to be too much, and this is why he winds up murdering his wife and his child. The child was going to definitely put him under if this boat crash case went to trial, and the wife could possibly put him under because they were supposedly not living together, and she might have been wanting to get a divorce. And if there's a divorce, all the paperwork's going to come out. It's all coming out. So Murdaugh is facing more than 100 criminal charges. The most serious allegation against him are indictments that he shot and killed his wife Maggie and son Paul at their Colton County home on the night of June 7th, 2021. With Murdaugh's January 23rd double murder trial drawing near, the legal battle lines are being drawn and the rules of courtroom engagement are being set in a series of pretrial motions and court orders leading up to the trial. And I'm going to try to get some more information on these as the public learns more about the highly publicized case. Meanwhile, Lafitte, previously convicted he's been convicted of bank fraud and other charges in federal court. In November, he filed motions seeking a new trial or an acquittal and has added more attorneys to his legal team. The judge puts out something. I didn't know that they had to do this, you guys, but the judge puts out something about protecting the identity of the jurors. So no information on who the jurors are going to be can be made public. And I didn't think that that could be anyway. So that was kind of strange to me. The state seeks to exclude polygraph third-party suspect evidence. The Murdaugh murder trial will pit the South Carolina Attorney General's office, led by state grand jury prosecutor Creighton Waters, against a criminal defense team that includes veteran attorneys Jim Griffin and Richard Harpleton. So we'll get more into all of that. But January 23rd is what we're looking at. Oh, yeah, definitely high profile. Already going to be gag order on, I believe that they've already done gag order on the like attorneys and stuff. It's crazy. It is so, this case is just crazy. And it's the first time I can think of, and anything that I have watched or listened to podcasts or read books or anything, it's the first that I can think of in true crime where they're going to go at someone from this angle, from this greed, money angle where he had everything to lose. You know what I'm saying? Like fraud and backstabbing, all of this stuff, to the murder, and it being his own family. It's going to be really interesting how they get from here to there. That's what I mean. It can. Yep, it can do a lot. It can do a lot of good, but it certainly turns people's minds into something that is crazy. Makes them crazy. So that's all I've got for you on this one tonight. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking we're going to go ahead and look at the night of the murders and what supposedly publicly right now is being said happened, and then we can go from there whenever the trial starts. You know, it was a whole, in that law firm, PDMED, whatever it's called, whatever those initials are, they're still going. There are people there that have taken over. So I don't know, when he lost his the bar, he lost that. I don't know if they're going to look into, I don't know how high up it goes. Let me put it that way, Sandy. I can't tell you how high up the investigation goes. Good night, Karen. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing it will, but I'm gonna have to look into that because I have a feeling they're gonna try not to. And the reason I say that is because there's another podcaster here, and I do watch her and listen to her. It's Pretty Lies and Alibis, and she's going to be in the courtroom for this, and then she's going to have updates on her podcast afterwards. And she's going to be reporting for Law and Crime Network, which is exciting for her. That's really great. So there may be some information come out that way. So don't think it's going to be televised. That's why they need somebody in there to watch it. So that's what I think. Pretty sure. Working on a baby blanket. Oh, so before you guys, the rest of y'all go, I did get something from Amazon today. And this is something I'm probably going to spend some time doing this weekend. I don't know how well it's going to work, but I have a lot of stray knitting needles. And thank you all for being here, those that were here tonight. Thank you all who are lurking and watching. I appreciate you very much. Gracie and Adele, those who are my replayers like Natalie and others. I have lots of, Sandy is a replayer. Hi, Nisi. Glad you were here. Glad you came by. So came with a couple of sticker pages. So there's some stickers. And then this is, it's like a notebook, okay? So it's a binder, a notebook binder with these plastic inserts, and I think it's a 3-ring. And I could decorate this too with my stickers. I may do that with some of my Miss Maker stickers. Yes, she has. Absolutely. And I have looked at the it's called Fitz News, and I have watched her coverage of Fitz News. I've listened to some of the podcast, not all of it. I haven't gotten through all of it, but yes. Yes, absolutely. Hello, Lisa. Is it fun? I want to do that next. I really do. I wanted to do that with all of those latte cakes, but it wasn't going to be wide enough. And I wasn't going to go buy more latte cakes. So I turned all those into scarves. So it's a 3-ring, but it's actually a 6-ring. It's actually a 6-ring binder. So 3 at the top and 3 at the bottom. Very simple. And then and then they have a zipper. So then you can put the knitting needle in there, the circular knitting needle, and roll it around and put it up inside of there. And I think I'll have to get back to you guys on how many came in here. I think there's 20. I want to say there's 20 of these envelopes packaged. So I'll be doing that, going through them, and I need to write down what I have also. And then also, Chelsea, I got my mouth guard. This is the one that I ordered. It's called Vital Sleep, an anti-snoring piece. I went to the dentist. He ground some of my teeth down to where they're not hitting. That will hopefully stop the pain that I was having. That is what the root canal specialist said, was that was hitting there, and that was causing it to be sensitive, and that I was grinding my teeth. So I asked him, and he said yes. He said a mouth guard would work, and he said if this one doesn't do the job, then they will make me one, custom make me one. But of course, that's going to be a whole lot more expensive. And I have not taken this out to do anything with it yet, but supposedly this will form, and it's adjustable. Like I told you guys, I did a deal on this, talking about this, but it's adjustable, so it will move my jaw forward, and that way I will not snore or have the sleep apnea. We'll see. I will let y'all know. I'm going to get it out and take a good look and see what I have to do on that. So the dentist said yes. He said it would be fine, that it would not hurt my dental work. So I am going to give that a try. Now, I'll keep you updated on that and tell you some more stuff later on. But glad you were here, Tammy. I'm glad you're okay. You'll get it done. I know, what a world, right? If you only knew, Shad. Okay, you guys, that's all I've got. Love y'all. Have a great weekend. If I don't see you, I have a video coming out tomorrow, and hopefully I'll see you on Sunday. I don't have it set up yet, or don't know really what we're going to do just yet, but hopefully I'll see you Sunday. All right, y'all. Don't forget to check out my other channel if you get a chance, and if you're interested in my other crafts that I do. Eat more vegetables. I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you. Thank you to my moderators too, Chelsea and the others here. I appreciate you. All right. Good night. I'm going now.